There's a movie industry habit that shows Colorado a lot of love, but filmmakers don't always film here. Now there's a new movie changing that story. Cranky, overwhelmed, snappy, all routine emotions during the pandemic, and there's a chemical reaction that might help you understand why. The polls have spoken. They want Marshall's truth test, so today he delivers on 2 political ads you've been asking about. Denver's COVID-19 testing site has cost millions, so who's using it? And it's not just people in Denver. Greenwood Village is familiar with protests over the last couple of weeks, and now City Council is deciding to move their next meeting on Monday from in-person to online. The city said police got some information that there could be disruptions and decided to go remote for everybody's safety. Now, City Council had been doing remote meetings during the beginning of the pandemic, and then over time had started doing a combination of in-person and remote meetings. We asked Greenwood Village what that information was about that prompted them to make this change. So far, we haven't heard back. There have been protests in Greenwood Village in recent weeks that we've told you about. They've been in response to City Council passing a resolution earlier this month to protect Greenwood Village police officers from being personally sued under the new police reform law that was passed at the state level. The city said that people can still give in their comments, either written or video, for next Monday's meeting. A Colorado judge says what's happening to bars right now during the pandemic is unfair, but that it's the virus and not necessarily the state that's causing all of these issues. Today, the judge refused to grant a restraining order that would have stopped the governor's executive order to move last call from 2 a.m. to 10 p.m. The Tavern Association of Colorado, which sued over this, argued that this could end up closing another 40% of its members' bars. Governor Polis says he understands the business's frustrations, but is calling this the least of the bad options.
I agree completely that it's outrageous that bars have to close at 10 o'clock and that we can't have our normal nightlife. I'm as upset as every Coloradan about a lot of things. I'm upset I can't go to Rockies games. The weekend that skiing had to close, we had planned to go skiing that weekend with our family, and we weren't able to do that. This is a tough time. Nobody in the country has figured out how we can have that kind of freewheeling, active nightlife during a pandemic. I hope we can figure it out. We'll work with responsible bar owners to do that.
The judge acknowledged his decision is going to be hurting some businesses and said that he felt very sad about it. The decision can be challenged, and it's likely that process has already started. The judge also denied a restraining order that was challenging the indoor capacity number as well. The state's largest free COVID-19 testing site is in Denver at the Pepsi Center. The city of Denver, like we've told you before, fronting the cost right now that's racking up to around $11.7 million as of last Friday. And it's been helping people far beyond the city boundaries. We got to look at those demographics today. And in fact, a little over half of the people who are getting tested there are from Denver. The rest are from around the Front Range. Taking a closer look at those numbers, just over 68,000 people have been tested at the site. More than 38,000 of them put down a Denver address. So that's about 56% of the people tested there. In second place is Aurora with almost 3,900 people, and Lakewood with over 3,300. People are also coming from as far as Boulder, Castle Rock, Colorado Springs, and Fort Collins. While the city of Denver is fronting the cost right now, they're fully expecting to get reimbursed from the feds through FEMA money as well as the CARE Act. And then moving forward, the state and the city of Denver are planning on splitting the costs of what it takes to run that site. More than 1,500 tests were processed in the state of Colorado yesterday. That's bumping our 7-day average up to more than 12,000 a day. Our positivity rate seems to be trending down. It's at just over 4% over the last 7 days. There are currently 239 people with COVID-19 in a Colorado hospital. The 7-day moving average stands at just over 245 people a day. 34 patients were discharged or transferred in the last 24 hours. The political ads, they are piling up. You're going to see 5 ads during the commercial breaks here on Next Today. And there are 2 that you've been specifically asking politics guy Marshall Zellinger to look into. One is about the Great American Outdoors Act with Republican Senator Cory Gardner. The other is a Health Cares Act ad by Democratic challenger John Hickenlooper.
When I was governor, we got health coverage for 500,000 more Coloradans.
Slow down here. This is a trickle down from the Affordable Care Act passed by Congress and signed by President Obama in 2010. However, Hickenlooper did have a part by signing bills into law to implement what Congress created. You see, the Affordable Care Act required the expansion of Medicaid, but the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that states must choose to participate in the Medicaid expansion. Colorado did in 2013. The Democratic-controlled legislature passed a bill allowing for that expansion, and Hickenlooper signed it into law. That added 400,000 more Coloradans to Medicaid. The other 100,000 are people who got insurance through the state marketplace, Connect for Health, thanks to subsidies offered through the Affordable Care Act. Hickenlooper signed the bill creating Connect for Health. He did not create the subsidy.
1964.
We've also received questions about Senator Cory Gardner's political ad about Congress creating the Land and Water Conservation Fund in 1964.
And for the next 5 decades, they stole its money, raided it for everything but the environment.
This is a stretch. Over the last 55 years, Congress did use Land and Water Conservation Fund money for the environment, just not all of the money that it could. The majority of the money comes from oil and gas leases on the outer continental shelf. Since 1965, Congress could have allocated almost $41 billion for federal land acquisition and grants for states. Congress has only given the okay for not quite half, almost $19 billion. The fund itself isn't a separate piggy bank. The money is just part of the Department of the Treasury, so it's not like the money's just sitting there not being used. Congress just chose to use it for other purposes.
They'll never be able to do that again.
This is true because of this section of the Great American Outdoors Act that passed Congress last week. Permanent full funding of the Land and Water Conservation Fund. By the way, Colorado has received $72 million from the fund for more than 1,000 outdoors projects.
Here's something I didn't know. I just got an email from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife. They say places like Sloan's Lake Park got funding from the LWCF for different recent grants. So it's not just the outdoors that you think of like in the mountains, it's even local areas as well. The end of that ad, Anusha, calls it Gardner's Law. Well, he sponsored it, and it was co-sponsored by 59 other members of the 100-member Senate, including Democratic Senator Michael Bennet.
And Marshall, what do we know about the total number of ads that run in a day?
Well, it's shrinking a little. In a day, it's still like you can watch any show and it's on. And I haven't counted, Anusha, but I know within this newscast that right before the primary, we were saying 8 or 9. You said 5. And wouldn't you know it, in the first commercial break, you're going to see that Gardner ad.
All right, keeping tabs on that. Thanks, Marshall. Appreciate it. We want to circle back to COVID-19 testing numbers real quickly. Wanted to correct that number. There was actually 10,500 tests that were processed yesterday. We were missing a 0 in that. So wanted to just make sure that we got that number out there. Well, yesterday, after talking about back to school plans, we heard from one of our viewers, Dina, asking about what are the plans for kids with disabilities where remote learning is not necessarily an option. So every district is going to have its own plan. So we're going to start with Douglas County first. The plan as of now has an option that's going to allow students with disabilities to attend school in person for 4 days a week. That's going to be aligned with their cohort. Schedules for those who might not be able to tolerate masks, the district would provide face shields for them. There are also exemptions like for those who are hearing impaired, disabled, and we're seeing a mouth is really critical to communicating. How that's going to be handled with other students and staff nearby is going to be decided on a case-by-case basis. In Jefferson County, the plan talks about working on individual schedules for students with disabilities, as well as accommodations. That could include things like speech to text, sensory activities, and visual schedules as well. We heard from Denver Public Schools, too, who said a priority would be to bring back students with disabilities when they open up their buildings. Of course, this is going to happen when it's safe. And once they're able to do this safely, the district will work on expanding to other students. Like we have talked about previously, each district has an individual plan on how they're going to be starting the school year for all of their students.
we came here with the intent to make this a Colorado thing, and we want to stay in Colorado. I have no interest in Hollywood.
Colorado's film industry has suffered in recent years, but one local production company is rejecting Tinseltown in favor of shooting in the Centennial State. If you're feeling burned out from the pandemic, you're not alone. We're feeling it too. We wanted to know why, so we could share that information with you next. We did some self-reflecting here on Next, started having some conversation with friends and family, and wanted to understand our reactions to the pandemic. You know, the feeling of burnt out, the anxiety, the crankiness. Well, it turns out a lot of these emotions are connected to a chemical reaction that is happening in our bodies. And once we understood a little bit better about what was going on, we started feeling better. So we wanted to share that with you too.
When we think about the exhaustion factor, makes a lot of sense. By that, we mean our limbic system and our neurological system. That's our kind of fight or flight response, our stress response. They are activated all the time now.
What does that actually mean chemically for your body, or what's happening within your body?
Okay. So when we think about that, we're seeing things like where our heart rates increase, our blood pressure increases, our muscle tension is higher. Now, again, very handy if we're being chased by a lion, not very handy if this is happening every moment of every day. And that's where we're seeing, and not alone, like we're having cortisol and these stress hormones just flood through our bodies on a really regular basis. And that's where we see things like decreased immune functioning and increased pain response.
You've got kids who are learning at home, going to school from home, people taking care of loved ones. Maybe you're sick yourself, and that's just adding on top of everything.
And then we also honestly have the grief aspect of it. We are all really experiencing a lot of grief right now, which sometimes gets kind of a lot of looks when I say that. But grief isn't about death. Grief is about loss. And we are all experiencing these tons of losses right now. Loss of connection, loss of certainty, loss of jobs, loss of finances.
What is something they could do tonight?
We know that has some fascinating science behind it, is being able to name our emotion. And name our emotion specifically. Stopping and taking 5 good deep breaths. It sounds simple. I get the biggest eye rolls when I talk to people about that. But I'm like, just give it a shot.
So there is science behind that too, right? It's basically helping hack that fight or flight response when you're doing that deep breathing. A lot of us on a lot of virtual meetings right now, so you might consider just turning the video off. Give yourself a break. And speaking of that, giving yourself a break is really important right now. Remember, some things for work can wait until tomorrow morning. And remember to work in those breaks for your kids as well.
More clouds today, cooler temperatures in the 70s in July. It's all due in part to the center of circulation over northeastern Colorado. 77 here today, close to 100 across the western slope. And yeah, we'll be warming up tomorrow, but there's still the chance that a few of these showers could move into the metro area yet this evening. A little thunder, a little lightning, and yeah, some of the storms up north in Weld County have hail. Once these storms move out, skies clear. We go mostly sunny tomorrow and warmer. Storms return to the afternoon forecast on Saturday. Partly cloudy, 57 overnight. We have sunshine and temperatures in the mid-80s for Friday, the last Friday of July. A couple of thunderstorms on Saturday, a better chance of rain from storms on Sunday, and then early next week, first week of August, temps back in the 90s.
President Trump tweeted out the idea of postponing the election, citing supposed voter fraud with mail-in ballots. We have covered this extensively here on Next about how mail-in ballots work in Colorado and how safe it is. The president does not have the power to postpone the election. Only Congress can do that. And it seems that his idea does not have the support of Colorado Republican Senator Cory Gardner. We got a statement from him earlier today. That statement said, "Our country has voted in turbulent times before, including a civil war, 2 world wars, and a global pandemic. Congress has the power to set the election date. Americans are going to vote on November 3rd, come hell or high water."
You know, there's a lot of nods to actual history, especially where we shot it.
Cripple Creek is ready for its close-up. We are all about a new movie set in Colorado, shot in Colorado with Colorado actors next. We know the beauty of Colorado, and so do filmmakers. This is not a story about a movie based in Colorado but never actually filmed here. It's actually the opposite. It's about two filmmakers using a mostly Colorado cast and crew to show off our state. Byron Reed has their story.
The natural beauty of Colorado is an attraction for visitors to our state.
We had vacationed in Colorado for 15, 20 years, and always we knew we were going to end up here.
Steve Kitzman is a producer at Studio Town, Inc., a motion picture and television production company that moved from Florida to Colorado Springs 6 years ago by friend and fellow producer Stephen Morgan.
I fell in love with the place, went home, told my wife, we packed up our bags.
So I said, you have to come out here. I found the perfect place to make movies.
Anyway, when the swap is done.
And now the two are releasing their first feature film together.
So the movie's called Rook.
Shot in 11 days last November.
It's quite genre blending. Think Snatch meets Fargo.
And entirely on location in the towns of Cripple Creek and Victor, Colorado.
Most of the actors are from, Colorado Springs, Denver. It's a crime caper about a gold heist that goes really poorly up in the hills of Teller County.
There's a lot of nods to actual history, especially where we shot it. It was kind of a natural storyline for the Victor Cripple Creek area.
It's part of the deal. Take it or leave it.
The film is being distributed starting in early August on Apple iTunes and YouTube for streaming.
3 years ago, we couldn't have imagined a global pandemic that would create this demand for streaming content and that theaters would be closed down.
The producers say they're trying to build a community of filmmakers in Colorado.
We shot at 10,000 foot elevation. You just can't duplicate that in a studio.
To produce more movies in a state known for its looks.
I don't believe that you have to be in Hollywood to make good movies or to work with good people, and I think there's a ton of talent here.
For next,
there's just something about this state that no other state can boast.
I'm Byron Reed.
The producers ate at local restaurants to feed the crew, and they wanted to keep the money in the town as much as possible. They're also already in the works for a second project. They're hoping to start that production next year. No matter how hard we try, we just can't seem to escape winter here in Colorado, and a viewer reminded us of that. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is Christmas in July. We got this photo from one of our viewers talking about how there's still snow in the high country. Thank you, Dan, for sending in this photo. He and his wife, Carolyn, made a summertime version of Frosty the Snowman during a hike in the Roosevelt National Park. They used rock for his buttons and flowers for his eyes. An epic mashup of the seasons, in our opinion. What is the most Colorado thing you saw today? Email us pictures to next@9news.com or tweet them with the hashtag HeyNext. All right, feedback. Somebody asking us about political ads. If we're doing truth tests, why do we keep running them? We've said this before. Sales department, news department, completely separate. See you next time.